The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is a story out of Hollywood that everyone's talking about. The ongoing legal battle and feud between Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds and actor and director Justin Baldoni. It's really complicated, but here's the story. It Ends With Us is a romantic drama that premiered during the summer of 2024. It's the story of a florist and her troubled relationship with her neurosurgeon husband. The movie starred Blake Lively as the florist and Justin Baldoni as her husband. Baldoni was also the director of the film. During the promotional tour of the movie, controversy began to emerge about what actually happened during the filming. Lively accused Baldoni of sexual harassment and intimidation in an article that was published by the New York Times. Baldoni then went on the offensive, suing the New York Times for defamation. Then Lively filed suit against Baldoni for sexual harassment and an alleged smear campaign against her. Baldoni then filed claims against Lively and her husband, A-lister Ryan Reynolds, for civil extortion and defamation. Many of the text messages between the parties have been made public, along with raw footage from the movie. And now a jury will have to figure out what really happened and what the truth really is in this Hollywood battle. I mean, it's getting real. Everyone has filed their lawsuits, and that process now is ongoing, and a lot of things are becoming public. And much like in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, Amber Heard, a trial that we covered here on Court TV, you're going to hear things that you usually don't hear. It's almost like going behind the scenes. But for a jury that's going to hear this case, they're going to have to figure out what really happened here. So let's begin by taking a look at Blake Lively's complaint against Baldoni and the studio as well, Wayfair Studios. Production of the film began in early May of 2023 and lasted until it was suspended in mid-June of 2023 due to the Writers Guild of America strike. During that time, Ms. Lively and other cast and crew experienced invasive, unwelcome, unprofessional, and sexually inappropriate behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, who's one of the producers. Because Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath held all leadership positions on the production, they answered to no one and brushed off or ignored the concerns Ms. Lively and others expressed. So, what are those concerns? Those concerns bring us to the first question in our investigation. Getting some of the specifics now. What did Blake Lively accuse Justin Baldoni of doing on set? Doing on set during the filming of this movie that Baldoni was starring in and directing in, and that Blake Lively was starring in. Joining me to help us figure this all out, entertainment reporter and host of Kinsey's LA Diaries on Talk TV. Kinsey Schofield is with us, and also joining us, intimacy coordinator and owner of Theatrical Intimacy Education, a leading voice during the rise of this line of work. Laura Rykard is with us. Thank you both for being here. I want to give a little more information for the folks at home from Blake Lively's complaint, some of the specifics here. Mr. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Ms. Lively, with no intimacy coordinator involved. Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Ms. Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good." None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Ms. Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. When Ms. Lively later objected to the behavior, Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Again, these are the allegations by Blake Lively. Let's take a look now at that slow dance scene. We have about 2 minutes of it that we're going to show you. It's about 10 minutes of video that was released by Baldoni's attorney.
And they win!
Oh my gosh, we don't shut up.
And Emily and I have we have these moments where
Staring, you just stare.
Literally we've done it for like 5 minutes. it's like, I think you would find it terrifying. We just literally hear each other and like
when
time.
I found a sociopath.
And like time stops.
Yeah.
But like that's just how it's been for us from the beginning.
No, we're like, oh my God, there's not enough time.
Oh.
And they score again.
No.
Again.
It's like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you something else.
I think that's cute. You guys are really cute.
I think it's more than cute.
They won the Stanley Cup.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then let's just do one almost like super close.
Yeah.
Can you guys frame up on the Sebastian on you? Yeah. We'll just do like our lips are right next to each other.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I think I should start talking.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Still rolling.
Don't give it to them. They want it. Don't give it to
They
them.
score.
Just
Right.
keep restraint.
Yeah.
Score.
Just do a little bit of restraint.
Ryan, come on back. And the couple by the bar walk towards us, cross. What is that? No, your name, sorry. Ponytail lady.
And then-
Cross this way. Cross this way. Take your date and cross this way.
I feel so nosy.
I know.
And noses.
And my nose is so big.
I was hoping that we could address this. It's not too late. Just gotta shut down. We gotta call an insurance month and just deal with that. And
Yeah.
then
Cut.
They score another.
I'm getting beard on you today.
I'm probably getting a spray tan on you.
It smells good.
Well, it's not that. It's my body makeup.
And they win. They won.
All right, cut.
Let's bring back in our guests. Okay, Kinsey Schofield, I'll begin with you. And just give us the big picture here a little bit about the way these allegations have been playing. First, the ones, because we're talking about Blake Lively's allegations now. Have they caused a bit of a firestorm? What sort of impact are they having on Baldoni, on the way everyone's being perceived now in Hollywood?
Vinnie, so good to see you again. Yeah, I mean, this has absolutely rocked Hollywood, and you're seeing this back and forth. These are two very polarizing characters now. I was Team Blake when I read that initial New York Times piece. I thought, oh, how terrible that she had to experience these things. But when you watch that video, you see Lively directing, and that wasn't her job. She was in control for a portion of that video. Here's what we're going to do next, heads together. Once I read Justin Baldoni's 168-page I'd Like My Saturday Back, but all 168 pages of his website and that timeline, you realize that sometimes your truth is not necessarily the truth, and maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle between these two, but how damaging this has been for both of their brands, I just don't know if it could be measured.
Okay, Laura, you're an expert in all of this and how it's supposed to play. First, give me your reaction to what we just saw in that video.
Well, the question is, for a consent-based space, which is what an intimacy coordinator is there to help support, how fully informed were both actors on what they intended to improvise as they were filming the scene? And it does look and sound like, from the setup, that production was mainly focused on background for this moment. Also, was there an intimacy coordinator present for this scene? From the research I've done, if it's correct, the intimacy coordinator was not requested to be there that day. And that's not unusual for what is considered more milder intimate scenes, like a kissing scene, hand-holding. It's not necessarily recommended to have an intimacy coordinator unless the actors or production would like to have them there. And I've done both. I've been on productions where I've been there for a kiss on the cheek, and then I've been on productions where I've been there for really heavy intimate scenes and not there for the kissing scenes. So if the intimacy coordinator was there that day, they would have certainly spoke with both actors, talked through, do you want to kiss? Where do you want to touch? How do you want that touch to be? Double check in between takes that it's all working for the actors. And if it wasn't working for the actors, convey that to leadership to make sure that we can change it so it does work for the actors. If there's not an intimacy coordinator on set that day, then the actors are communicating with each other. And then they have to, if something isn't working for each other and the actors aren't listening, then they would need to report that to the person above their pay grade and let them know.
Unfortunately here, I think what she's alleging is that Baldoni is like at the top, almost at the top in charge here. That's her allegation. There's a couple other allegations she makes that I want to make sure folks know about. Baldoni inserted improvised, gratuitous sexual content or scenes involving nudity in the film. After she signed on to the movie, without Ms. Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Ms. Lively was to orgasm on camera. When she objected, Mr. Baldoni insisted that he added them because he was making the film through the female gaze. Mr. Baldoni then intrusively asked Ms. Lively whether she and her husband climaxed simultaneously during intercourse, which Ms. Lively found invasive and refused to discuss. That stuff sounds a little out there. Before we run out of time, Laura, let me ask you about scenes that come after the fact. Have you seen that happen during the course of a production where they add something and then suddenly there's a discussion about it? How does that go when things go well?
Yes. Well, the recommendation by SAG-AFTRA is that nothing is added 48 hours before filming. So things can come up after people have agreed to be in the film, but as soon as it comes up, we discuss it with the actors. We contact their agents. We let them know. We go through writers with them. Those writers go to legal. So everything is documented, and we go in deep detail to see what the actor needs to consent to doing those moments. And then we work with wardrobe and stunts and everyone we can to get what they need so they feel as supported as possible to do those moments. Or they can say, no, I was not aware of that in casting. I do not want to do that. And then production has to handle how they're going to move forward with that actor establishing that boundary. And the intimacy coordinator is there to help and support, to advocate for the actor in that process.
All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment. Big thank you to Kinsey Schofield and Laura Reichardt. Great to have you on the program. Coming up next, was there a smear campaign against Blake Lively?
The Court TV Podcast will return.
So this case of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni is in part about what was happening during the filming of the movie, but it's also about what was happening after the filming of the movie. Take a look at this. This is, again, Blake Lively in her complaint against Baldoni. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Ms. Lively's reputation. Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfarer associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Ms. Lively exercising her legally protected right to speak up about their misconduct on the set. So she makes the allegations about what's happening on the set and then says as a result of that, she was attacked afterwards by this sophisticated plan, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Was there a smear campaign against Blake Lively? Did they go after her? Joining me, Associated Press entertainment reporter who's been covering this dispute. Andrew Dalton is with us, and crisis management expert, leads a specialized crisis response team for the firm Red Banyan. Kelsey Kinter is with us as well. Great to have you both here. This is some wild stuff. Like, just trying to understand it from not being in Hollywood is difficult. Andrew, what are your thoughts about this allegations of a smear campaign? Like, how did this play out in terms of social media and the press as all this is unfolding? What's going on? Because I'll be honest, I was a little bit out of the loop at the time.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of really damning text messages. They've got, a crazy amount of text messages for this early in a case before there's been a lot of discovery that really do appear to coordinate a smear campaign attempts, from folks working for Baldoni and for the film to smear Blake Lively. If you look back at the actual coverage at the time of the release, it was framed a lot more, though, like just a classic dispute between a director and an actress, who maybe, weren't getting along, struggling for control, struggling over cuts. And a lot of that was fairly balanced. Now, a smear campaign might not be super explicit all the time. It might mean just getting, certain things buried and certain things included, and it'd be about tone and emphasis. But, even though there was this, this really vicious talk of attempting to bury her and all of that, attempted defamation isn't a crime. And, you may see it's not totally clear that her reputation was dragged that badly.
Okay, Kelsey, what I want to do for you is I want to lay out some of these allegations and then some of the text messages, and then you give us the insider's perspective on what's really going on here. We begin, this is from the complaint. Wayfair and Mr. Baldoni retained a crisis communications specialist named Melissa Nathan and her company, the agency group known as TAG. Ms. Nathan delivered a proposal to Mr. Baldoni, which included a website to discuss, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. This is the way to be fully 100% protected. As Ms. Abel described it, the plan was to engage in social media mitigation and proactive fan posting to counter the negative, as well as social manipulation. TAG, again, this organization, this group, circulated a scenario planning document to Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, one of the producers, and others, which described preparations and strategy should Ms. Lively and her team make her grievances public. Then we've got a text, Mr. Heath and Ms. Abel, morning, not in love with the document they sent, and this is Baldoni sending a text in response to the plan. Not in love with the document they sent, not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. Now, what I want you to take a look and a listen to here is text messages between Jennifer Abel, the publicist, and Melissa Nathan, the crisis communications specialist. We have our producers reading this back and forth so you have an idea of this text conversation.
You can, of course, do that, but I think he needs to know. I'm going to confidentially send you something he's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried.
Of course. But when we send over the documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. He has to look at it as an information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. We can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. I will. I'll be very tough.
Kelsey, what's going on here? Is this a smear campaign? Is this a legitimate way to control publicity? What are you seeing and hearing here?
Well, what I'm hearing is they're violating like PR 101, which is don't write down things you don't want amplified to the world. And that was the first thing they did. There's always a blurry line. One person's smear campaign is another person putting their narrative out. But they certainly were very aggressive in their tactics, and they put it in writing. And it really did its damage, absolutely, when those all came out. Now, in the meantime, Justin's been pushing back and really aggressively getting out his narrative ever since then, trying to sort of battle back from when those texts hit the press. And he's actually done a pretty remarkable job. And if you look at that website and you look at how he put everything down, lawsuits can get a little tedious, a little legal for most people. And he put a great timeline narrative together that is his complete narrative. And you can just see how far they are really fighting for this. I mean, now they're accusing Lively of a smear campaign. Basically, they're all trying to put a whole bunch of their narratives out there. It becomes a convoluted mess, and nobody knows what to believe anymore.
Andrew, have you ever seen it to this extent, the public relation aspect, and you've got it's an actual federal case that is taking place as well at the same time?
There's no individual element here that I haven't seen before. It's the confluence of all of them. There's so many. It's like some kind of a hydra. There's so many elements to it. It's just almost hard to pin down. It has bits of Me Too and bits of sort of classic Hollywood fights over that happened on the set. And one of the reasons I think this has happened is if you look at some of the conversations behind the scenes, it felt like they were almost looking to see who was going to take the blame for a disaster. But the twist no one really expected was that this movie was going to be a really big hit. This isn't the kind of movie that even usually plays, in movie theaters anymore. It's usually relegated to, second-tier Netflix status, but it played in theaters. It made $150 million. And in the short term, that might have made things better, but in the long term, I think it just really raised the stakes and made it more certain that it was just going to come out.
Kelsey, we just have like 10 seconds here. The social media manipulation, is that common? Is that happening?
Well, certainly you're trying to get your narrative out there on social media. I'm not sure these tactics are ones that most people would stand by ethically.
All right, Kelsey Kinter, Andrew Dalton, great to have your insight. Thank you so much. Coming up, what are Justin Baldoni's claims against Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the cross accusations between Hollywood power couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and actor and director Justin Baldoni. The plot of this lawsuit is actually more interesting, I believe, than the film that they made. Here's the story. Blake Lively is a very successful actor married to super A-lister Ryan Reynolds. Justin Baldoni is an actor and director with a successful career in Hollywood as well. In 2023, Lively was co-starring with Baldoni in a movie he was directing called It Ends With Us. It was a story about the troubled relationship between Baldoni and Lively's characters and included some domestic violence. When the movie was released, there was a lot of buzz surrounding the film, but it was more about the real-life drama between the actors. Lively accused Baldoni of sexual harassment and intimidation. Baldoni claimed he was being defamed by Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. These accusations have resulted in a very high-profile case with both sides suing one another for millions of dollars. And in the meantime, many of the communications between the parties have become public. Now, this case is slated as the next big Hollywood celebrity trial. So we've spent some time talking about Blake Lively's claims against Baldoni, which brings us to our next question in our investigation. But before we get there, I want to take a look at part of the amended complaint here. Take a look. At the bottom, this is not a case about celebrities sniping at each other in the press. This is a case about two of the most powerful stars in the world deploying their enormous power to steal an entire film right out of the hands of its director and production studio. Then, when Lively and Reynolds' efforts failed to win them the acclaim they believed they so richly deserved, they turned their fury on their chosen scapegoat, tolerating 1.5 years of their behavior while remaining polite and professional at every turn, offered Baldoni and Wayfarer no protection. So this is part of their claim or complaint against Lively and everyone else on her side. So that brings us to this question, and we want to get into the specifics. What are Baldoni's claims against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds? What's going on here? What does he say? Why is he suing them? You understand why she's suing him. Joining me, longtime entertainment blogger, columnist, and media personality, who I believe made his way into the complaint here. Perez Hilton is with us, and celebrity attorney who formerly represented Kanye West in his divorce from Kim Kardashian, Christopher Melcher. Great to have you both here. Perez, this is taken over, but it's so difficult to really peel back the layers to understand what's going on here. But let's focus now about what Baldoni is alleging against Lively, Ryan Reynolds. What is this about? It seems like he's saying they basically stole the movie from me and then lied about my behavior.
That's the gist of it. You know, he is suing for defamation, extortion, and basically, in layman's terms, shady business practices. Also included in his lawsuit against Taylor Swift's best friend and her actor husband is her publicist, Leslie Sloan, and he actually counters that she and her publicist orchestrated a smear campaign against him. And in the amended lawsuit that Baldoni's attorney filed on Friday, in the timeline of events, he included a treasure trove of previously unseen communications, including, and I don't know how Baldoni's attorneys got this, alleged text messages that Blake Lively's publicist was sending to the media, talking to them and disparaging him, allegedly lying about him, trying to paint him out to be someone that he is not. That, alongside the other mountain of evidence, will definitely help all of Baldoni's claims.
You know, Christopher Melcher, this is messy. This is like really messy, and it's all playing out publicly. I don't think anyone is going to, end up better off after all of this. When Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, somebody did in that case. This one, though, as messy. What are your thoughts about how it's progressing and whether or not one side or the other can get anyone to believe what the truth is here?
Well, that's the problem. Both of them definitely are wounded, but Baldoni has no choice. She brought the claims or went public first with it. He's strictly in a defensive posture. And certainly she got a lot of attention and sympathy when her claims were first raised, looking like this, that she was, kind of blacklisted and all this stuff happening to her. But now when we see the truth or some of these, at least Baldoni's truth, we see the other side of it. And that, at least according to him, and many people believe this, that she was the aggressor pretending to be the victim.
Now, another part of what Baldoni is talking about here is they're stealing the movie from me. Take a look at this from his amended complaint. He alleges that Lively asked if she could, quote, take a pass at writing the rooftop scene in It Ends With Us, in which the characters Ryle and Lily first meet. The draft of the rooftop scene that Lively sent Baldoni dramatically differed from what had been written originally. Baldoni was hesitant about many of the changes, but thanked Lively for her passion and diplomatically told her that the scene would likely end up being somewhere between the original version and Lively's version. Seemingly stung by Baldoni's exceedingly mild resistance, Lively did not respond and went silent for multiple days. Difficult proved to be a gross understatement. Though Baldoni initially invited Lively to make changes to the script, Lively began altering the script daily. The feud over the rewritten rooftop scene apparently resulted in Baldoni leaving a voice memo for Lively that the Daily Mail was able to obtain. Here's part of that recording.
I want to start with an apology. Man, reading the second part of your message, my heart sank. And I'm really sorry. I for sure fell short, and you worked really hard on that, and the way you framed it, and how that made you feel. I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me. That takes a lot of trust and vulnerability, but I just wanted you to know that I didn't need that, because it's really good, and it's going to make the movie sing like you said, and I'm excited to go through the whole movie with you.
All right, Perez, can you tell me what's really happening here?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. What is happening in that moment is a man who is close to breaking. At that point in the film, she had already began to exert control over so many aspects of production, not just rewriting the script, but she had also taken over wardrobe, causing the wardrobe budget to go over by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she had this, in my opinion, a ginormous sense of worth and ego, and he was just trying to placate her, because not only was he the actor, but as we've established, he was the director, and his production company, Wayfarer Studios, produced the movie. Sony was the distributor and a co-financer, but he was just trying to get the film finished, because according to his amended complaint, repeatedly, Lively threatened and threatened and threatened to get her ways and get more and more control. Even during post-production, she threatened that she would not promote the movie unless she got this and that. And according to receipts that he included, email communications from Sony, she even demanded that the film's distributor strip him, the director of the movie, from the film buy credit. He directed the movie. It was a film by Justin Baldoni, but he ultimately acquiesced in order to make sure that the film could be released on time. And in my opinion, he rose above and was way kinder and more professional than I would have been.
This is really unusual. Let's take a look at more of the amended complaint. Still, during the pre-production phase, Lively and Reynolds, that's Ryan Reynolds, raised entirely false allegations of fat shaming against Baldoni, an accusation that, as evidence will show, was categorically false. Baldoni privately reached out to Don, his personal trainer, to ask what Lively weighed so that he could train his back muscles in preparation for a lift scene. This was important to avoid injury, not only to Baldoni, who suffered from lifelong back injuries, multiple bulging discs and chronic pain, but also to Lively if the lift could not be completed successfully and safely. Lively summoned Baldoni to her penthouse to discuss the script. However, he was met by an angry Reynolds who screamed at Baldoni and accused him of fat-shaming his wife. This confrontation by Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to ask of his trainer. Reynolds demanded Baldoni remove the scene entirely. Chris, this is a lot of inside baseball here in how a movie is made and some of the things back and forth. I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, is this something that is really actionable? Is this something that should really rise to the level of a federal lawsuit?
Well, I mean, she's brought the suit and he's got to defend himself. And there's some very serious allegations being made against him and Wayfarer for harassment. So he's coming over the top and saying that's all false and that this was all about her. And I think that quote there really shows that she's the center of attention. She takes this opportunity that he has to train himself and prepare for a scene as somehow relating to her weight. So I think this reflects really poorly on her. But Baldoni has to defend himself. These allegations are very serious, and he's really but no choice but to now come out with everything that he's got.
All right, Perez, in all your years of covering Hollywood, have you ever seen, the smears going back and forth at the level that they are in this particular Feud case, which is now a lawsuit?
Yes, I mean, even recently, there are so many parallels to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, which was extremely toxic, and at least one of the same players are involved. The crisis PR expert, Melissa Nathan, who was hired by Baldoni last summer, also worked with Johnny Depp. But just to circle back for a quick moment, it had been well documented that Justin Baldoni truly did have back issues. In fact, during production, he was hospitalized for his pre-existing back issues. In his amended complaint, he included photos from the hospital and texting his editors about being unwell. And I am excited to hopefully have this go to court because he has suffered from these allegations that she made against him. According to The Hollywood Reporter, which I consider to be a very reputable publication, Justin Baldoni had been set to direct a big movie. He had signed on to be the director of a live-action adaptation of Pac-Man, and he has been removed from that. He's no longer going to be doing that in the wake of all of this.
Perez Hilton, Christopher Melcher, great insight. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Still to come. So, what will this trial look like?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
You never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. They score! God only knows what I need without you. If you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me.
Well, that's what the movie looks like. It ends with us, but there's a lot more to go. There may not be a sequel to the movie, but the sequel may end up taking place inside of a courthouse. And that brings me to the next question in our investigation, which is, what will this trial look like? Let's bring in some folks who know the answer to that question. Joining me, former federal prosecutor in Los Angeles, Nima Rahmani, and he served as special trial counsel to Johnny Depp in his defamation case. Trial attorney Wayne Dennison. Great to have you both here. Okay, Wayne, what are your thoughts about what this thing is going to look like? Will it look anything like Depp v. Heard?
Yeah, I don't think so, largely because of the setting and, quite frankly, although these people are prominent, they don't have the same level of prominence. I was actually at the courthouse for the Imelda Marcos trial, and it was very well regulated, irrespective of the amount of national and international attention. I don't think you're going to see a circus.
Nima Rahmani, what do you think we're going to see at this trial? Because I'm looking at, Blake's best friend is Taylor Swift. It seems she may have been there at some points during this. Her husband is Ryan Reynolds, another super A-lister. What do you suspect this trial will look like?
Well, it really depends on where it is, and Wayne touched upon it, but obviously in federal court, for better or worse, it's tougher to get that circus environment because there's no cameras in there. Obviously, New York State courts don't have cameras. But one of the lawsuits is filed here in Los Angeles, and of course, there are cameras usually in Los Angeles courtrooms, and we are used to a lot of celebrity cases. So may not reach the level of Depp v. Heard. That's a unicorn type case because of Johnny Depp and who he is, but it may get close because there's a lot of fan interest in this case, both on traditional and social media.
Okay, so Wayne, from your perspective, looking at the claims here going back and forth, there's the sexual harassment aspect of it, but then there's the aspect that these are all false allegations, and this is a defamation case. And, they're trying to take over my movie. And she's saying, no, well, you're doing this smear campaign against us. What do you think it's really going to be about?
Well, I think she's going to get the benefit of the doubt, and she should get the benefit of the doubt on this. But quite frankly, the only way he is going to save himself career-wise and from cancellation generally is to come out as hard as he possibly can. And obviously he's done that. Whether that ultimately works will depend on the facts, but I don't see any other way that he could have approached this case without sort of forfeiting his career.
Nima, with everything that has become public now, and again, there's the counter claims about the information that's out there, both sides have taken on some damage here. Do you see this case as potentially settling? Like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard not settling, right? Because Johnny Depp wanted his day in court. He wanted to get his reputation back. It wasn't even about money. It was about, where do you go to get your reputation back? Well, you get Wayne Dennison and some lawyers like that, and you get it back. Do you think either side here wants they want the trial? They don't want the trial? Is it about money? Is it about reputation? What do you think?
Vinny, it's definitely not about money. Blake Lively doesn't need the money. Ryan Reynolds certainly doesn't need the money. And Justin Baldoni is fighting for his career. And I think even though the vast majority of cases settle, there's a high possibility that this goes the distance. I don't think Blake Lively and her legal and PR team appreciated the possibility that Baldoni would strike back. And this is a case as much for the court of public opinion as it is that courtroom. It's not about the money. And I think if you ask folks, especially now, they think Baldoni is winning that battle, that PR battle. I would say probably 80% or more people who are watching are on Team Justin Baldoni, which I never would have thought when that New York Times article came out, or William Morris agency dropped Baldoni, or he had that achievement award rescinded. Johnny Depp had an amazing comeback. This may be one of those amazing legal and PR comebacks as well.
And Wayne, if you had to put a number on what the case could be worth for either side if they're victorious, what's the ballpark you think we're talking about here? We have about 15 seconds.
I mean, and people are throwing out $400 million. It's not a $400 million case. This case is all about reputation, and $2 would win it for Baldoni.
Big thank you to Nima Romani in LA. Wayne Dennison, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Hollywood lawsuits are always multi-layered. First, there are the actual legal allegations, right? And here, as we've been talking about, it's basically a combination of sexual harassment, defamation, and allegations of civil extortion. And while a civil lawsuit is about money, right, because of damages, in Hollywood, it's also about reputation. And both sides are dug in this case. And because both sides want to continue to work in movies and have blockbusters and have careers, the problem is if they go to trial, one side may lose not just the lawsuit, but also a meaningful future in Hollywood. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.